Hi everyone, Dr. Emma here, former Team USA professional skater and current doctor of physical therapy. I'm starting my typical skater injury series, so we're going to go through lots of different things that can happen to the body from skating and ways to prevent them so that we can all use this time wisely. So we're going to start from the bottom up and we're going to talk about the ankle first. So what we're going to talk about first are some common ankle injuries that I've seen. There was a study that was published that looked at the incidence of different injuries in skating, and the foot and ankle was number one. So that's why I think it's so important to do some of these prevention exercises and to focus on the foot, because it doesn't get enough attention when we're in a regular training regimen. So the stress fracture, I think, was the most prevalent. There's little bones that are kind of like these parts of your hand and your foot, and when you tap in, they can get a lot of this compressive force. So what that does is the bone is structure. There has an outer, harder layer, and then there's a softer inner layer. So that outer, harder layer can kind of collapse downwards, and then the only thing that makes that better is rest. So it's really important to limit the number of those toe jumps, to have nice soft landings so that you're not getting a lot of compressive load in the foot. But if you do feel any pain as you press in through those bones, it's good to definitely contact a medical professional so that you are taking the rest that you need right away and not postponing it, because this injury can take longer to heal if you don't have a proactive approach. They heal faster earlier on. It takes a lot longer later on if the fracture is even more intense. The other thing that's extremely common are ankle sprains. Our feet are in these nice tight boots that are being held, our feet are basically being held in casts for a long period of time throughout our day. So this is a good break for everyone to really get back in touch with your feet. The boots, you tie them nice and tight. You need to, but that is going to limit the amount of blood flow and the amount of work your ankles are going to have to do. So even though those boots are nice and supportive, we still need our ankles and our feet to have the strength to do the work for us. So ankle sprains, I'm sure you've heard of them. We tend to diminish the importance of them. They can result in a lot of time off the ice, unfortunately. So we're going to talk about the different muscles and the ligaments that are involved in keeping your foot in line so that you don't have that deviation. Every time you tap in for a lutz, a flip, a toe, you're going towards that ankle sprain position. It's basically just pulling inward, so it's going to stretch that outer ligament of the foot. And ligaments don't have a lot of blood flow, so it takes a while for them to heal. So what we want to do is try to strengthen the muscles around them so that ligament doesn't get too much stretch. It doesn't get pulled, so that we keep whatever tension we do have, and those muscles then support the foot and keep it from getting into that dangerous, what's called inverted position. Another issue that I've seen in skaters is their arches like to drop, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard of pronation. So a lot of skaters are asked to wear orthotics. Orthotics are great, but they do the work for you. So what we're going to talk about is ways so that your muscles can then act as internal orthotics, because that is going to prime all the other muscles to work together. So you don't really want to only be using braces to hold your knees in line, your ankles in line. We don't want to depend on other things. We want our muscles to act as the braces. So if we're looking at the arch, what we want to see when you're barefoot is a nice solid lift here. What you'll typically see is that the foot rolls in, and there's a bone right here called the navicular that can rotate downwards. When it rotates downwards and your arch collapses, your knee will also cave inwards. So you'll be primed to kind of flip out of your jumps. So this is why it can actually improve your jump technique and your landing consistency if you strengthen some of these muscles inside the foot. So if you have a nice solid dome and you're landing and you're keeping this up from the inside with the muscles, not just the orthotic pushing it up, it can really, really help keep that knee in line, because your muscles will get a signal to then go up what's called the kinetic chain. It kind of activates the muscles from the bottom up to engage and keep that knee in line, keep your hips nice and stable as well. So the other muscles are called the perineals. They come from here and they go out. They do this with your foot. So they kind of keep that foot in line and they allow it to not rotate inwards like that. So that's what we want to definitely focus on strengthening. There's also another muscle that's called the posterior tibialis. It's right on the inside of the shin. So that is actually, it goes down and under the arch and attaches right to the base of the foot. That will also give you a nice solid dome and that good arch inside the foot. So all of those different muscles need to be strong in order for you to have a nice good foot structure that's going to be primed to absorb that landing. All the muscles help act as springs in the feet. So you have a nice spring system to help dissipate the force of that landing. If you don't have strength there, you're going to collapse right into your foot, and then the force doesn't get reduced as you hit the foot, and it goes right into your knee and then into your hip. So you'll see a lot of other people in another series will talk about some hip issues that can happen. But as you can see, the foot is very, very important as it's the first thing that will contact the ice. So the stronger, the better. Disclaimer alert, if you do have a current injury, this video is not meant to rehabilitate them. It's just meant for educational purposes only. So please contact a medical provider, a physical therapist, physician. They can probably reach out to you via telehealth and do a little bit more of a thorough investigation, and then you can get some individualized advice. I'm going to show you some of the exercises that are more in like the beginning phase. And then we might get a little bit more advanced in section 2 for the ankle. So hopefully everyone has a whole set of stretchy bands. I think all skaters should have basically all of these in their bags at all times, just to do some general little exercises to prime your muscles. So this is just a light band. You kind of want to start light, because if you go too heavy too quickly, you'll activate some of the bigger muscles and not let the little stabilization muscles have a chance to fire. So I'm just tying the band around my feet in a bow. And then what you're going to do is you can sit up, and then all you're going to do is try to pull your foot outwards and then let it come back in. So you're taking it into that kind of ankle sprain position and pulling it straight. You should feel that muscle come up the outside. So you do around 2 to 3 sets of 10. I like to add a little bit of a hold to each one. And again, this is just phase 1. If you do have an injury, there's an extra phase before this. So that's why it's best to contact a medical professional. So that's going to get what's called the perineal muscles. Those are the ones that are going to help that ligament not get overly stretched, so they kind of go hand in hand with it. You want to flex the foot just a little bit. You don't want to be fully pointed for this one. So it's just a little bit here and then not fully flexed either. So it's kind of right in between. Now, you can cross your legs over and then you can pull it in and then let it come back out. A lot of you will shake on this one because it's pretty weak. This is the posterior tibialis. It's the one inside the shin that will help kind of increase that doming of the foot. So you're coming in and then back out and then in and back out. Again, you'll do 2 to 3 sets of 10 of these. And you should get a little bit of a shake, and that shake means that you're actually using the correct muscles. So you are identifying the weakness and then doing the right amount of resistance in order to then strengthen that weak muscle. So this is the short foot exercise, and what we're trying to do is, again, create that space by activating what are called the foot intrinsic muscles. So what we're going to do is literally just try to pull that arch up and away from the floor. The hardest thing to do is not to grab with your toes. You don't want to curl up like this. See how the big joint under my big foot is lifted? What we do to help avoid that is you can stand on a little towel. So you take the ball of the foot right on the inside. You put the edge of the towel right under that joint of your big toe. You add a little bit, you add a little bit of pressure on the towel, put it right under there, and then I'm doing that arch up while pulling on the towel. If it's lifted, the towel comes off. So it's a little bit hard to see. I'll do it from the side. So I'm seated, I'm pushing down through here on my foot and lifting up with the arch. A little bit of tension on the towel. So it's just a small movement. And then if I roll to the outside, the towel comes off. You know you're not doing it correctly. So the towel just adds a little bit of a cue to make sure that the toes stay nice and flat and pushing into the floor while you're getting kind of a twist to lift what's called that midfoot to pull it in line. Practice that short foot exercise, really get it down, and then I would do about 2 sets of 15 with a couple seconds of a hold in each one so that we're training it the way that it's used, which is via endurance. You want it to be able to be able to hold itself over a longer period of time, not just engage here and there. So for this heel raise exercise, we're going to just do it in parallel. So it's important that we keep your feet like equal signs. We don't want them to roll outwards. We're going to keep them nice and even. So you'll just start going like this, lifting up, holding for a second, and then slowly lowering. You're doing it nice and slow and controlled so that you can work on not bringing them out, but keeping them so that they're going the exact same direction in the middle. It looks like this from the side. We're just lifting those heels as high as you can, holding them for a second, and then coming back down. In order to get full strength for your muscles in the lower leg, you need to be able to do a single leg heel raise all the way up and all the way down, looking like this, all the way up and all the way down, with light pressure, being able to hold on to a bar. So just nice light touching here, all the way up, all the way down, 25 times. The last section we're going to talk about is balance. We just worked on getting all those muscles primed and active. Now they need to work in a functional way. We need them to fire without us having to think about it. And the best way to do that is by training different balance exercises so that they're working automatically without us having to think about it. So what we'll start with is just feeling a little bit of what's called postural sway. We're going to start on 2 feet. You're just going to stand 2 feet near a surface. So you're just going to have your fingers lightly near something nice and stable. And then you're just going to lift your hand, close your eyes, and you're going to feel a little bit of pressure move around in your feet. So what we're doing is we're taking away your ability to see the visual world around you that helps orient your brain to know which way is up. So that way you're focusing on what your feet are feeling, which doesn't really happen in our skates because they're numb, cold, and don't have a lot of blood flow. So this way it's helping amplify that signal so we're more sensitive to it. So again, just eyes closed, stay near a stable surface, and you're just closing them and feeling a little bit of sway. Now, we're going to advance it to single leg. The thing that I see most is you stand on one foot, that arch collapses, and knee dives inwards. So what we want to do is practice what you did in the short foot. It might take a little while before you get this skill down, is to hold that arch in place. See how when an arch falls, my hip drops, my knee drops in. So we want to keep that foot in line, keep your tummy pulled up just a little bit. And again, we're staying near a stable surface so that your hands can just touch as needed. And you're just going to try to keep that little bit of an arch in your foot while you balance on one foot. If you're safe and you feel like this is easy, you can hold that arch up. You can keep your hips nice and level. Your knee stays in line. Then you advance it, again, close to something nice and stable by closing your eyes. The goal is to see how long you can stand there without hopping around. If you can get to 30 seconds, you're doing awesome. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully this was helpful and educational. If you have any questions non-specific to any injuries, just shoot them in the comments below. I'll be kind of doing a more advanced phase for the foot and ankle next, and then we'll move into the knee, hip, and back in future videos.